Great, let's call this meeting to order of the Historic District Commission of Westminster on Wednesday, November 3rd at 7 o'clock, 2021. This is a virtual meeting and I'll call us to order with our statement of authority. The Westminster Historic District Commission derives its authority from Chapter 164, Article 9A of the City Code, which is authorized by the Maryland Code Annotated. Land Use Article Division 1, Single Jurisdiction Planning and Zoning, Title 8, Historic Preservation. Qualifications of the Westminster Historic District Commission are on file at the City Administration Building at 45 West Main Street, and the file is open to the public. Let's talk a little bit about the minutes. And I actually found just one thing that I thought was missing, maybe two out of the minutes this time, Andrew.
Okay.
So one thing I thought was that when we were talking about filling in the windows on that tax credit application by Ms. Yang, there was an important concept of reversibility that we discussed, that these specific historic preservation activities should not be irreversible.
Okay. Yep.
And somehow that got lost from the conversation. The other thing I wanted to add was that further down when we're talking about 288 East Main Street and Kevin's request for the Secretary of Interior guidelines for historic property documentation, I think we were careful to say the most recent edition, because there are various older editions that are far less stringent.
All right, I got both of them, Madam Chair.
Anything else from anyone else on the commission?
No, I thought you did the city staff did a great job summarizing that. That was a very long meeting. So kudos to those who put that together.
All right, so I'll hear a motion to accept the minutes.
Make a motion to accept the minutes of October 6th.
Second.
Thank you, Kevin. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I don't hear any opposed. All right, let's move on to old business. We'll talk about the tax credit application requirement discussion.
Sounds good, Madam Chair. At your October 6th commission meeting, the commission discussed 3 areas where information about receiving 2 quotes could be added. Those were the city, the City of Westminster Code, your rules of order and procedure for the Historic District Commission, and the historic tax credit application. At last month's meeting, the commission collectively decided that that information would be suited best in your rules of order and procedure. Under Section 5 application procedures, we added under A, letter B, of any applications for projects with an estimated cost that exceeds $15,000 shall provide 2 cost estimates. However, if a second cost estimate cannot be obtained, an explanation as to why shall be provided with the application. In addition, any binding entity shall not have any ownership, stake, or connection to the property or property owner. This information is also in the attached draft rules of order and procedure right here. And for recommendation, planning staff recommends the commission review your attached rules of order and procedure and approve the added language. If you have any questions, Madam Chair, I am here. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask if there was any consideration of putting it on the actual application itself?
The only, well, and that, yes, the commission, I'm not sure if any of the other members thought about that for the last, I'm assuming everybody did.
Wouldn't it have to go on the application as part of the guidance for completing the form?
And actually, one of the things, and this is the last item, but two estimates, yes, on the updated application, but it does not have that on the current application.
I guess then when we talk about that updated application, help me remember that I'd like to have that $15,000 indicated there. Because although it's great to have it in the rules, it's so easy to slide right over them.
Okay,
Can I bring up a point of discussion, Madam Chair?
Certainly.
I have a little bit of concern about any bidding entity shall not have ownership, stake, or connection in the property or property owner. The way I understood it is we weren't saying that you can't work on your own property. I think that would just be a bump to why you need a second estimate. Am I misunderstanding the language here, and do other people agree or disagree with that?
Yeah, I agree, Josh. I think what we were shooting for was if there is some form of financial connection between the property owner and the bidding entity, a second non-conflicting quote should be provided. That was I think what I was shooting for in my concepts. So if I was off base, please let me know. But yeah, I agree with you, Josh.
Yeah, it seems to me that would, basically have two criteria where a second quote is needed. One, if the work exceeds $15,000, and two, if there is a family or other ownership connection. I believe that's been our discussion to date.
Actually, I would support any work that has a conflicting bidding entity, whether it's above or below 15,000.
Yes, my apologies. I meant it's an either or, like, yeah, all the more if it's above 15,000 and it is a family member, but doesn't matter any kind of work. If it's a family member, that's a reason why we want to, get some context there. So total agreement.
How would the rest of the commission feel about splitting it into two separate bullets under section 5? So a bullet B for the 15,000 and then a bullet C outlining the financial conflict of interest mitigation.
That makes sense.
That way it's more explicit as to if this is not applicable to the 15,000, they're not related.
Good suggestion, Josh. To me, I say make it clear as mud.
so then that would be the new B and C.
Yes.
So if I may, Madam Chair,
Yes.
so the first, or let's say B would talk about $15,000, that any applications for project with an estimated cost that exceeds $15,000 shall provide two cost estimates. And then the second one is if there is a connection if there's a connection between the applicant and bidding entity, or if there is a connection with the applicant and bidding entity, and it's over $15,000, then there needs to be two separate bids.
I wouldn't even put the 15,000 in. If there's any connection, I think we should see the two bids
Okay, so remove the $15,000 completely.
from C.
Okay,
Yeah.
but
I would just say any bidding entity shall not have any bidding entity with an ownership stake or connection to the property or property owners shall provide a second bid.
But just to be clear, my understanding is what we were still saying, or if there is no family connection, if it is a super big project, we
Mhm.
still want to get context. Is that correct?
Regardless if it's over 15,000, a second bid is what I understood we wanted to require.
Yep. And another suggestion, Andrew, if you could put ownership stake or financial connection to the property. I would hate to think that just because you patroned a shop, you can't bid on any work.
With any bidding entity with any ownership stake or financial. And Vice Chair Burrows, what was that?
Finance, just add the word financial before connection.
Okay,
Yeah, that language might be a little clunky. I don't know. What's the rest of the board think about that?
We might need to ask our city attorney when they have time to see if they can sharpen that up.
Yeah, I agree. That's a really good suggestion. I would hate to design some type of rule that we can't legally enforce and then just, spin all of our cycles on it.
Mhm. I mean, I think it's clear what we want to get at, but I'm not sure we're saying it the best way.
so if I may, Madam Chair,
Mhm.
so for number one, if we do two applications, any project is over
Right now,
15,000.
Sarah's probably up front. She's probably out front at the office. I apologize for that.
So any project over $15,000 needs to have two bids. However, it could be under $15,000 if the bidding entity with any ownership stake or financial connection is bidding. So
No. So Andrew, what I would suggest we do is we remove the last sentence and approve what you have without the last sentence. And then take that last sentence to a city attorney and have them look at it, how we phrase it for any applicant who has any kind of financial connection with their bidder must require a second bid. There's no
Okay.
15,000. Just take off that last sentence and at least we can approve that much tonight.
okay.
I mean, somebody has to make a motion to that extent, but that's where I see a reasonable progress.
But however, Madam Chair, the $15,000 is still in there.
That's okay. That applies to everything else
Okay,
that doesn't have a financial nexus with the owner.
okay.
Yeah. They're really two separate concepts, and anybody who has a financial nexus should be able to demonstrate with the second bid, whether it's 15,000 more or less. But we'll work. I think that needs to go to another meeting after we've talked with the city attorney
Okay,
on how to sharpen that language up.
okay.
Does that make sense? How about, what do you other people think?
Yeah, I think I agree with Chair McMasters that that language for the proposed bullet C needs to be sharpened. But I'm certainly in agreement. We can make a motion on any project exceeding 15,000 requiring two cost estimates. I'm in favor of that. So I'll just make the motion now. I make a motion to approve adding language to the rules of order and procedure requiring any applications proposing a project that exceeds $15,000 to provide two cost estimates.
Are you going to add the second sentence? However, if a cost estimate cannot be obtained, an explanation?
Yeah, let me reword my my motion.
Mhm.
I make a motion to amend the rules and order procedure for any application requiring $15,000 to provide two cost estimates with the understanding that we will revisit an additional proposal to include any potential financial costs, conflicts of interest requiring two proposals as well. That being a separate bullet, not included in the proposed bullet B.
Second,
That was very lengthy, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, I guess I want to make sure I understand your proposal, Aaron. Sentence 1 and sentence 2 is okay. Sentence 3, we come back on.
Correct.
Did you, the other commissioners understood that motion to stand that way?
Yes.
Chris? She may have her mute on.
Yeah, I did, yes. Yes, I said,
So you understood the motion to include sentence 1 and sentence 2 of B paragraph?
yes, I am listening. I am.
Okay, and that sentence 3 could be acted on at a later time.
That's a good idea.
All right, any questions or any concerns? Hearing none, I guess we'll go to a vote. All in favor?
I,
Aye.
Right, well, Andrew, I think you have something you can move forward with, and we'll work on the other portion between now and another meeting.
Sounds good, Madam Chair.
Great. Next topic, pre-construction application for historic rehabilitation property tax credits.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. At your October 6th meeting, the applicant mentioned that they were going to withdraw their application. On October 7th, the applicant emailed planning staff and officially withdrew their application. I just wanted to bring it to the attention of staff for the closeout of this tax credit, and there is no action required for this item.
I would like to take a moment of privilege to explain, since it was my tax credit, just so the other folks understood why I withdrew my project, just to step it through with my logic. Things were going pretty fast and furious. So my project was about $10,000. It was brought to my attention, there's a requirement that a licensed contractor is required. I find that to be onerous because as I go through the regs, there were no architectural services to be rendered, no engineering services or framing to be rendered. Plaster, gutters, mortar work for joints and preparing brickwork doesn't require licensing. Painting and repairing shutters does not require licensing in the state. When I looked at the difference between a licensed contractor and an unlicensed contractor in Carroll County, on average, an unlicensed contractor works for $250 to $500 a day. On average, a licensed contractor can be $500 a day and more. In my situation, my unlicensed contractor was working for $300 a day. If you look at my project, which is about $10,000, I'm rounding it up so the math is a little bit better. An average material costs are about $3,000. In my case, it was going to be a lot less because it's simply paint. That's all, that's and a couple pieces of wood. But let's just say for argument purposes, it would have been about through 30% on your average historic preservation project. If I would have had to get a licensed contractor with the materials remaining at $3,000, the cost of labor would go up to $9,800 for a licensed contractor. My total cost would have gone up to $12,800. My request from the city would have gone up to $1,280 instead of $1,000. I would have had to pay $2,520 more for work on this project, and the city would have had to pay an additional $280 for this work to be done. And that's the cost of a licensed contractor on work that does not require licensure. So to me, I could do the math in my head pretty quickly that night. I didn't have time to sit. I didn't feel like I could sit down and do the math for you guys, but I think that this escalator is really not good for the city, and it's certainly not good for people like me, because I would have had to pay another $2,520 for the pleasure of working with you people on this project. So anyone who has just, you know, a sole proprietor person working with no W-2 employees, no architectural services, no engineering services like plaster, guttering, repainting, mortar work, or shutter work. I think this is a real freeze on our ability to save money for the city and save money for the citizen. And that's really all I needed to say. I'm happy to answer any questions. All right, hearing none, we can move on to the facade improvement application for 121 East Main Street. And Andrew, are you going to present that?
Yes, Madam Chair. Thank you. The applicant, Max Johansson, is requesting grant funding in the amount of $13,000 to $13,500 for the proposed facade improvements to his building. Those improvements are contained in the RNA painting estimate for the principal building. There is also a second quote from Fisher Custom Designs in the amount of $28,577. Planning staff recommends the commission review the attached facade improvement application, City of Westminster Facade Improvement Program overview, and attached estimates, and grant the appropriate funding for this project. Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Johansson is on the call. If you have any questions, and I'm also here if you have any questions. Thank you.
So just to begin the discussion, I do want to ask about the replacement of shutters rather than the repair of shutters. Can you tell, are you just replacing some of the missing shutters, or are there shutters you're actually replacing?
So all of the shutters are going to be replaced. Unfortunately, it's not possible to repair them because the 3 that you can see in the pictures are not present with the building. I purchased the building in February of 2020 in the condition that it's in. Now I've done some minor updates on the interior, but I can't replace shutters that aren't there, unfortunately. But I mean, everything that will be replaced will be with the same style shutters, wooden material, and you know, it's just basically updating it to keep it the same. Because
So you're replacing in kind wooden shutters with wooden shutters?
yes, ma'am.
Same scale and same basically measurements and all?
Yes, ma'am. I believe the measurements, I think they're 17 by 71. So I pulled the measurements and I've just kind of been waiting, you know, because my plans with this building, you know, it needs to be updated regardless, but if I can utilize the facade program, then that would be lovely. So I've just kind of been waiting. Like I said, I've had the building since February, and my tenants, I have a tenant downstairs now, Bob Bonneville, and I have a real estate agency going into the second floor. So you know, more than half of the building has been sitting vacant for almost 17 years. The only thing that's been rented is, you know, the first floor. So, you know, I'm just trying to update the building and bring a couple more businesses into Main Street. And I have that all in the works, but it's kind of, I've been waiting because I don't know what, you know, if I were to start doing some of these things, I don't know if that would negate me from the facade program. So I've kind of been on hold. You know, my tenants are patiently waiting for me to start these updates. And I apologize I wasn't present last week. My work schedule, or last month, my work schedule is all over the place. So, you know, but that's the idea, is just to update these buildings. And I've previously done a building to the facade program, actually 2 of them, 297-299 East Main Street. And we finished that, and those buildings look fantastic now. You know, it really took a lot of work, but they look great. So
I do have to say, I find it troubling that you've already done some removal of the shutters with no, doesn't seem like there's any kind of record of it. And frankly, shutter repair is a very common thing to do.
no, I have not removed any of the shutters. The shutters were off the building upon purchase. They were never on the building when I purchased the building. They are not present at the location. I couldn't tell you where they are because I didn't own the building at the time. I bought the building in the current condition that it is in.
Okay, I thought this was preemptive work that you were doing and removing, pieces that you felt were just beyond repair without actually being able to demonstrate that.
No, ma'am. Nope.
I got it. Okay, good.
No,
Now I'm
I
less
wouldn't just
trouble.
take 3 of them off. If I was going to take them off, I'd take them all off. But no, that's not the case.
Well, I definitely applaud your patience then, because I've had my own shutters hanging for months that are just an embarrassment too. So, so the other thing I'd like to move to is landscaping.
Excuse me, Chair McMaster, I have a quick question. Mr. Johansson, is there a way that, I mean, the rest of the shutters, I mean, I can't really see from the photos. They look to be okay, a lot of them. Sometimes they, your vendor can just replace, take one of the original shutters. I'm not sure if these are original to the building or not. They might not be. And just make 3 new shutters that would match the rest of that. Is that a possibility that you could do that?
I mean, I could look into it, but ultimately, none of the shutters are in great condition.
Okay, all right.
And I would hate to put work into 3 of them and then
Right.
the other 9 stick out like a sore thumb.
Okay, it's just that sometimes that's possible, but your answer makes sense. So thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Like usually our whole emphasis is repair way before replace.
Absolutely.
And, it's just a common stance to say, why can't you just replace just 3 of them and fix the others? Because you were trying to preserve historic fabric on these buildings as long as possible. So, and I know that the missing ones, you have to somehow replace those. That doesn't look right at all.
Correct.
All right, well, let's put it this way. I would certainly very much encourage you to explore that repair option. Although tonight I understand we have a replace option only.
Yes, ma'am. And as far as the landscaping goes, that has now since been deleted from the bids. That was never ultimately in the new bids, it's present. That was all deleted. Nothing like that. I was just simply stating that would be updated. I'm not trying to apply for money along those things. That was just my intent for the building, is to update that as well. So unfortunately, that just got lost in the bid.
All right, so is your current bid that you present to us, the 2 bids actually, without any cost for landscaping?
Correct.
All right. Well, that's my only questions. How about the rest of the commissioners?
I have no further questions. I think that we've addressed everything that we talked about formally, and I'm excited to see this building improve. It has been largely empty for a very long time. It's an area of town that I'm excited to see what happens next with, and appreciate all the attention that you brought to the meeting this evening.
Aaron or Chris or Kevin?
I mean, I agree. I think this is one building that hasn't been too mucked up yet. So, I mean, if I'm not and I don't know for sure, but I mean, I think that the original windows on the first floor were punched out and that big window was put in. That's my guess that that's what happened. But the rest of the architectural detail is there. So it'd be nice to have some building on Main Street that is mostly intact. That would be great for that to happen. Yeah. So I'm all for that. And all that, the woodwork and the detail. Yes.
All right, would someone like to make a motion to accept this proposal, this application as proposed?
Yeah, I make a proposal to accept the application for 121 East Main Street.
In
Happy
total.
to,
And we have a second?
yes. Yeah, I'll second it.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Any questions? I think all the work looks eligible to me, other than just the landscaping. Any other thoughts or concerns? Then we'll take a vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none. Thank you, Mr. Johansson.
Absolutely.
I-
Thank you very much.
I gotta ask, are you gonna try and get some of the paint done yet this year, or are you foreclosed out of the year?
I would like to, I'm gonna have to read the weather. And if I get a warm week, then, I'll try to get my guys up there. But as far as, the trim, the missing trim, the rotten wood, I would like to at least start getting that replaced because winter's coming and, whether it's snow or anything that's going to sit on there, it's only going to continue to get worse. So if I could have my guys or, whichever company I can get from the two bids to come out there and start that as soon as possible, I'd really like to. And I know, like I said, my tenant, Bob Bonneville downstairs, he's been very patient with me. And he'd like to see the building, updated, and I try to do my best and explain to him that it's a process through this and everything. So the sooner that I can actually get started on it, the better, because we do have a 6-month deadline. I believe that's the deadline, correct?
Mr. Gray?
Yes, I believe so.
And like I said, it's coming up on a year that I've owned the building, and my tenants with a new company coming in upstairs, like I said, the real estate office. It's hard, not that the building's in horrible shape, but opening a new business in the current business downstairs, you want the building to look presentable. And not that it's falling apart, but it certainly needs some help. So I'd like to get it started as soon as possible. And now that we've all discussed and come to a conclusion that this is something we can make happen, I don't see why we can't. You know how Maryland weather is. I'm sure we've got some more weather coming our way. So I think we'll try to get it started as soon as possible.
Let me assure you, Mr. Gray will fill out the certification for you. He'll call me to come down and sign it, and we'll try and not be a reason for you to be behind one day. When I
Okay.
see rotting wood, my antennas go right up to terrible. I really want to get that wood covered with at least a primer before winter sets in, because you're right, it just gets worse at a geometric rate.
Exactly. And it's just an eyesore. When you come down, I know I'm not looking, like I said, unfortunately those shutters aren't there, but I'm not looking at the 9 shutters that are there. I'm looking at the 3 that aren't, or however many it is. So that's just the situation, the 3 that are missing rather. And, that's the way I see things. I've done my father and my family has done a couple buildings for the facade program. And like I said, I've done one before. And it really, that the property that I have at 297, 299 East Main Street, I mean, that's at a staple point in town. And those buildings were in really rough shape for a long time. So now it's nice when you're sitting at the stoplight, it's not, it's not an eyesore anymore. So.
Well, I will say to you that you have to keep in mind, if you have a substantial change, you have to come back to us, right?
Absolutely.
There's a
Yep.
substantial change order, bring it back to us so we can commiserate with you and approve it. But we need to see those substantial changes.
Okay.
And if you find something along the way that makes you say, I'd like a second opinion, we're free to come down and be of technical assistance to you.
Okay.
You may find some feature in the building you don't even actually know what it is, or maybe you have some ideas for using our tax credit program, which is different than the facade program, for other work that you have planned. Be sure and talk with us and keep the lines of communication open, because we really want to be helpful.
Absolutely. I appreciate that.
Sure.
And I gotta say, Andrew's done a great job communicating with me as well. It's nice to meet all of you for the first time and discuss this. So, like I said, I really appreciate this, and I'm glad we came to, a conclusive decision.
Absolutely. Thank you very, very much for your time. And Andrew will pick up with you after the meeting on getting your certification.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yep, you guys have a great night.
You too.
That's great. I love it. Okay, guys, let's move on to item D, demolition permit at 288 East Main Street. Mark is not here, so Andrew, are you going to speak on his behalf?
Madam Chair, Mr. Depot is on the call.
Oh, he is. Okay.
I'm here.
How did you sneak in, Mark?
That's what I do. The reason there wasn't an application or anything provided, because we had nothing to provide for you. I just wanted to give you an update. We have reached out to the gentleman to do the archiving report. We sent him the individuals that would, the requirements for somebody to do these reports and what we're actually looking for provided from the state, and that's what the Historic District Commission recommended. So my understanding, he has reached out to somebody and working on that, but we just haven't received anything yet. So for my part, I'm informing him that I'm deciding that I'm going to extend the time frame for the HDC beyond the 30 days until such time this report is provided and the HDC has the ability to review it and comment.
Mark, I so appreciate that. I have to say, one of our demos some years ago, we got the report something like 3 days before the demo was planned, and the time had run out, and we found that report to be woefully lacking, very inaccurate, and using the oldest regulations they could find. So it'll be great to have a little time to review and make sure that an excellent job is done. And
more specific to this, I know we have an item F that we'll talk a little bit about this as well. But two agencies were contacted, Maryland Historic Trust and the Heart of the Civil War area, about 288 East Main Street. Just some feedback after discussion with them. They both have stated they don't have any regulatory power when it comes to this property. They'd be happy to work with us on best practices. Again, that's item F, but specific to this property, there's not much they can do, but they'd be happy to, if you so chose, if the Historic District Commission wanted to, have them come to a meeting and provide input about 288 East Main Street. But both agencies made it clear that they act on an official letter from the city, from the Historic District Commission, requesting that help. So that's for 288. Again, we're going to talk about more of this in item F, but just specific to 288, I guess we can hold off on that discussion as we move to item F, if that's okay, or unless you want to.
I just want to clarify the nexus of those two agencies' involvement. So the Maryland Historic Trust is the gatekeepers for the state district assignment, and this property has a state registered assignment for historical importance and the National Register District. This Maryland Historical Trust is the gatekeepers for the National Register District. That's just the way the feds have delegated to the state historic preservation offices about looking at National Register districts. It's convenient because both activities of registration on a federal level and in a state level are in the same agency. The Heart of the Civil War Heritage Area has a heritage area that extends down Main Street in town, and that heritage area considers this property as an important part of maintaining the integrity of the heritage area. This house was extant during the Corbett's Charge, for instance, and the other Civil War activities that makes us even eligible to be in that heritage area. And for both registers, really all three, you can do enough damage to be basically kicked off. So they can come and talk to us about this specific property and its contributing characteristics to all three of their resource spaces that they maintain. And we can talk about that in F in a more generalized way. Any questions? Was I clear? I hope so.
Yeah, I just a quick question from me for city staff. Did you look at any other municipal government or state guidelines around some of these discussion points in addition to the heart of the Civil War?
When it first started, the question came up about what power we actually have for demolition, and we're finding we don't have much. There's really nothing in the zoning ordinance that even touches on somebody wanting to demo a property, and if they do demolition of the property, what recourse or power we have. So we did look at what we might be able to do in the future, additional regulations. I looked at Annapolis and the city of Frederick. The city of Frederick has a separate demolition ordinance where they look at any building that is 50 years or older within the city as a whole, not just the historic district structures that would come before the Historic District Commission review. And they also look at any type of demo. It's just not demolition of the entire building, but if they want to do a portion of the building or a wall of the building externally, that would also come back to them. So they have much more, they have a stronger regulatory power also when it comes to the historic district, as you can imagine. So we have been looking around as to what, and that goes to item F, what best practices we could look at in the future to ensure this doesn't happen again. But unfortunately, right now, we just don't have much power at all when it comes to this demolition.
All right, let's talk about best practices in F. If everybody's agreeable, we can move on then to the new application if there's no objection. All right, hearing none, let's look at the proposed new application.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In the past months, the commission has had discussions on new requirements for historic tax credits. One of the things that staff wanted to do with these communications happening with Historic District Commission is to make the application clearer to potential applicants. Staff drew up, and actually this was, I drew this up several years ago, this new style of application. Not only I feel that it's cleaner, it also is the same style as some of the other planning applications in the city. For instance, the application for hearing before the Board of Zoning Appeals. So just to make this a little bit more cleaner, easier to understand, and more, what's the word I'm looking for here? Well, more uniform from the rest of the city applications. So staff's planning recommends the commission review the attached application and provide planning staff any feedback that you all may have. If no objection to the application, planning staff will post the application to the city website as the official tax credit application. Madam Chair, at the beginning of the meeting, you mentioned that you wanted me to remind you when we got to this item about $15,000. And if you have any questions, I'm here. And also, I included our current tax credit application and the new tax credit application so everyone can compare and contrast the two. If you have any questions, let me know. And thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. I'm going to ask why under number 3, you don't say the drawings are optional like the original tax application.
I can do that if the commission would like.
To me, it seems like that's just a, kind of a reasonable holdover from our last application. Do we have comments from any other commissioners?
No, I definitely think that drawings being optional is a good thing because we don't want to put too much. We don't want to make it too big of a burden for the owner. But as a member of the military, I applaud your strive for uniformity. So kudos on that.
Thank you.
Could we also put in the terms mandatory on number 1 and number 2, like the old application had?
I can do that, Madam Chair, if the commission would like.
Again, other commissioners,
I'm sorry to be the one that wasn't paying close enough attention. I'm a little confused which one is the new one. Is it the one we're looking at right now?
That is correct.
Thank you
Commissioner
for
Ambrose.
just double checking there. So thank you.
Not a problem.
so back to looking at number 1 and number 2, and I would suggest even number 4. The term mandatory ought to be listed so people know what they absolutely have to support.
Yeah, and I think number 2 is where we put our little asterisks of if this exceeds 15,000, we expect to bids, you know, so forth and so on.
I think that's number 4. Number 2 is photographs.
I think, again, we're looking at different applications. Back to my original point.
I think the newer one is the bottom one.
I thought Andrew just said the one on the screen is the new one.
It is, Commissioner Ambrose, the one that has 45 West Main Street with the city seal on the top. This is the new one. It says application for historic rehabilitation property tax credits in Brown.
Thank you. No, that wasn't the one on the screen. Appreciate it.
And now, just for clarity, number 1, number 2, and number 4 should all say mandatory. And you're right, Josh, I should say in number 4, we need that little line about 2 estimates for projects over 15,000.
I think we are literally all on the same page now.
That's sad.
So, Madam Chair, if I may,
Yes,
so for number 1, 2, and 4, put mandatory. For drawings, which is number 3, put optional, and then include with number 4, the $15,000 and 2 bids.
right. This is just, just a question. Maybe we should link it right to that spot about the $15,000 so that and also the conflicting financial thing that we will talk about in the future both pop on the same section. Because I noticed you have that at the bottom here with an active link, and I'm always striving towards people really knowing what they're getting into before they fill out all the paperwork.
Okay, I could put, I suppose I can place in there about, please see the attached rules section, such and such.
Either that or just pop that little word link in there,
Okay, and just one of the things to bring up, I will try to put all this in, but when I bring this up in Word, it's
Mhm.
pretty much as much as I can fit in here without
I see that.
lowering the font.
How about, Andrew, excuse me, how about like an asterisk somewhere with a, and with a code, that way you won't have to like for 1, 2, and what was it, 4 mandatory, you could just have an asterisk and mandatory, you could do it that way, then that way you would save space.
Okay, yeah,
A key, that's the word I was looking for.
because I can see 2 and 4, I won't have a problem, but 1 will push it down, putting mandatory instead is a good suggestion.
Mhm.
Or highlighted or something in red or something.
Right.
I don't mean to over engineer this at all. Do we have any other comments about this form? Really glad we're keeping it to just 1 page. Save a few trees.
Andrew, I'm looking, comparing the two forms side by side. I'm not seeing anywhere on the new form, the asterisk that was included on the old form under bullet 2, where the minimum expenditure must be $5,000 in 24 months. Is that anywhere that I'm just not seeing it?
Yeah, that's a good catch.
Yes, I can place that in there, and I can also maybe put a 6 and only have, and move 5 down and then get rid of the B.
Yes.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Thank you, Commissioner Burrows.
Good catch. Good catch, Aaron. Anything else for the good of the form?
No, I think it looks good. Nice
Thank
job,
you.
Andrew.
Thank you. And if I may ask, with moving forward, if the commission, with the commission's decision, is this something that just you would like to vote with the conditions that staff changes this? I'm assuming you wouldn't want this to come back to you. I just
No,
wanted.
we'll
to
see
throw
if
that
it's
out
good
there.
or not, Andrew.
Okay,
We'll approve this on condition if we get a motion from our commissioners. Do we have a motion from a commissioner?
Yeah, I'll make a
Diane,
motion. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Josh.
go ahead, Aaron. Nope, it's all you, bud.
I'll make a motion to approve the new revised form with the changes as discussed.
Second,
Kevin, were you seconding?
yes.
Great. Then is there any further concerns or things we need to discuss? If not, all in favor?
I,
Aye.
Any opposed? Then I think the ayes have it.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, commissioners.
All right, we're back to down to item F. I'd like to talk a little bit about this topic, a smidge, but is Mark still here?
Yes, yep.
Maybe Mark, you'd like to start us off a little bit?
Yeah, I think it was brought up and we talked a little bit about this at the last meeting and through some of the emails. I think what staff is looking for is guidance from the Historic District Commission as to whether you as a group want to invite these groups, MHT and the Civil War Heritage Area to a future Historic District Commission. I think also clearly it's a twofold to talk about 288 East as well as best practices or what we could do to improve or our regulations. So I think that's what we're looking for. And if that is the case, then I think we'd want a vote by the Historic District Commission that would also allow Chris McMasters to sign any letter for the Historic District Commission that we would send out to these agencies. So that's what we're looking for, but obviously this is discussion and I know this is a hot topic, so we're just looking for feedback and discussion from the HDC.
So if I could piggyback on, other agencies, not just the city, has a stake in our historic resources. We have a federal level, a state level, and we have a heritage area level. And, they all have their own historic management plans, and they expect their partners to kind of uphold a certain level of management of the local resources. And it would be a shame to me if a demolition happens and those organizations never really got an opportunity to at least record how important these resources are to their level of stewardship of resources that we've signed on as partners with. However, the state and the Heart of the Civil War Heritage Area or the Historical Society, there is no nexus for public comment other than, just to show up this meeting and make comments. It seems to me that it might be useful, at least on our current demolition property, to just ask an official ask on letterhead from the city for the comments of these other agencies that have a stake in our heritage, and to just record what the loss of that resource might mean. It doesn't mean it's going to stop the loss of the resource, but at least it's on record and we have something to demonstrate to any of our future partners that there really is a value much more than just what we see locally to lost historic properties. It would be nice to have on the record as someone else speaking for these resources. And I'll open it up to discussion after making that suggestion.
I appreciate, getting additional people around the table for some perspective and context. I mean, absolutely no disrespect to the Heart of the Civil War folks. I don't know, though, personally, whether their perspective, I think it's welcome, but I don't know if their example is germane to what we are trying to do with our Main Street. I certainly would welcome them at the table, but I would be particularly interested in adding some additional comparable Main Street perspective or committees. I know Mark shouted out Annapolis earlier, or anybody else that we know is doing that kind of work.
Maybe I should have been more clear. My most recent suggestion was only on our current demolition property and the effect of losing that property. The next step of discussion would be, how do we do better practices? How do we find other main streets as examples? How do our stakeholders, like the heritage area may have very little to offer us in best practices other than how they value our resources. But I think I was just looking for a record of our current possible demo at 288 East Main Street from 3 partners, specifically maybe 4, just to get it in paper, getting it in writing, the kind of effect the loss of that resource might cause.
It seems to me like there's a smaller scale that's more immediate, and then a larger scale that's more long-term. And I'm in favor of both. I've always been of the mind that the more perspectives, the better. And if we all have tunnel vision, right? We're very focused on our Westminster Historic District Commission, not realizing the impact that narrow focus may have. Bringing other people to the table, leveraging the expertise that's not just around, Carroll County is rife with historic districts, and Annapolis is a great example, Ellicott City, a great example. These are places that have done exactly what we're trying to do, get to the point where we're trying to get to. I love this idea. I think it's a phenomenal idea, and I welcome it. I do apologize. On that note, I do have to leave. I have some family stuff that I need to attend to, but thank you all for your time, and I'll end on that note.
Thank you, Aaron. Do we have any other feedback from commissioners? And I want to just focus in on 288 and then talk about the bigger issues after that.
Well, I think I have some general comments, Commissioner McMasters, and I just think as a volunteer historic district commission, as a body, I think it's our job to go and see how we can improve what we do or what we were supposed to do. And I think, getting guidance from outside agencies, and this is their job to do this, and this is what they have done in other cities, in other towns, and other locales. I think we absolutely need to do this. It seems to me that hasn't been probably addressed in a while, and it's time to maybe tighten things up a little bit and see what other folks are doing.
Kevin or Josh, do you have anything to add?
I agree with everything that Christine just said.
Kevin, are you still awake?
Yeah. I kind of like the idea of what you were saying the federal agency and state, I also think it's important that they realize we care to what they think because they are providing us guidance. So to me, for them to be a part of things like 288, I think is only positive.
Right. So I'm looking for a motion that would encourage city staff to work with me on a letter to the Heart of the Civil War Heritage Area and the Maryland Historical Trust, and perhaps even the Historical Society of Carroll County, to just ask about what is known about the property from an historical understanding, and how the loss of that property would affect their heritage operations and their heritage efforts in our region.
I say I'll make a motion and do whatever, use your words to do it. I can't think I can eloquently say it as good as you just did.
Thank you. We would be seeking an advisory opinion. They have no nexus for power, so it'd be an advisory opinion. Is there a second?
I'm happy to say it.
Right, we got a second. Any discussion? Because I'm gonna have to be writing this with city staff. Trust me, it'll be very short and pithy because this is the kind of thing these agencies can accept, but it has to be off of city paper. It's gotta be off of letterhead paper. Mark and Andrew are gonna make sure I don't say anything too stupid, but it's just asking for an advisory opinion on the loss or potential demolition of 288 East Main Street. And that'll allow them to wax profound about what they know about the property and how important it is to their preservation efforts. Any questions?
No, I mean, the only two discussion points I would say is just, again, I really hope that we get ambitious in getting more people to the table. And then as it relates to that particular property, I would just note the clock is ticking on that one in terms of its damage. I mean, it was already highly damaged is my understanding, and the longer that there's tarps on the roof, the more those logs are going to rot.
I certainly appreciate that. So can I ask for a vote on that motion? All in favor?
I
Okay, great. So now in the larger consideration, I think that motion passed, Andrew. Now in the consideration of the larger discussion of best practices, I can share with you, I have some concerns. And I'm just going to mention there is a small property for sale on the end of East Main Street, only a couple doors down from our demolition permit. That building had a fire a couple years ago, and I believe it's been empty for a few years. I really feel like this property on East Main Street, just a few doors down, we're going to be back in the same room in 6 months with our same concerns, our same gnashing of teeth, our same headaches. And that's within the historic district. There's another property on Washington Street that is not within our National Register property district, but it is thoroughly historic. It's 29 Washington Avenue or Washington Street. It's been vacant for many years. It went off the market 2 years ago. It's at least from what you can see on the outside, it looks to be in a benign neglect situation. And that house was supposed to be one of the first houses to see corpus charge advancing and owned by African Americans. And to me, that's an incredibly important property that is molding. And again, in the spring, I have every expectation that a demo permit would come through, but it's not even in the National Register district. So I would love to move on to considering best practices. And if there's some best practices out there that are not limited to the historic district, I'd really love to see what municipalities out there are doing. And I think that we need this commission to say, go ahead, start doing some research.
Yes, absolutely. I would hope that, you know, we have a plethora of historic buildings here in town, and I think it behooves this commission to think aggressively about how to increase our chances for preservation, upkeep, and anything else we can do to preserve their historic integrity, their cleanliness, their upkeep, you know, any way that we can help improve them for the betterment of our community.
Yeah, I agree. I think all this guidance and discovery from organizations and agencies that, you know, this is their job and this is what they do and this is what they're trained for. You know, just the guidance and, you know, having them review particular properties and districts, maybe they can help us also get more teeth. So we have a little more say, instead of just always making suggestions that anybody can say yes or no to. And I think that the successful cities like Ellicott City and Sykesville and Frederick and cities and towns in other states have more teeth with their commissions or their programs than we do here. And that's why their cities and their towns and their districts look the way they do. So that's my hope.
So Mark, are you still on?
Yes.
Yes, I am.
So what would be most helpful to the city in terms of a motion to move forward on looking into best practices? Would we charge city staff? Would we set up our own ad hoc committee to begin data gathering? What do you think would be most helpful?
All of that sounds wonderful. So, no, staff will certainly start doing research on best practices. We'll, as you talked, we'll reach out to those agencies to get input as well. And anybody on the HDC, if they want to coordinate with staff and do research as well, we welcome that.
All right. One thing I will tell you is that the Maryland Historical Trust actually has a human being assigned to us as a historic district. It's a liaison. Now, I hate to say it, that human being seems to change every 3 or 4 months, so I can't tell you who that human being is. But as far as the state hierarchy goes, there is a person who is assigned to us. And they're supposed to be, frankly, watch guarding us, making sure we're not making drunken decisions in a bar somewhere. They're the ones who send us that little flyer all the time about the various historic district resources in the state. They probably have 50 others, but years ago, when we wanted some sharpened advice, Andrew, I don't know if you were still around, but we had one of them come to our district commission and talk to us about managing other historic districts and what kind of resources the state had for us if we wanted to reevaluate how we managed things.
Madam Chair, if I may. Is this the Maryland Association of Historic District Commissions?
Well, that's the nonprofit, but there is a state person assigned to us.
Okay.
Who manages us on a state basis. It used to be Corey Kirkergeist, but I know he went up to Pennsylvania, so it's somebody else.
Okay.
But we can find that. Like that's a findable person, you know. I mean, maybe Christine, if you would like to contact MHT and ask them, you know, that would be a good start.
Sure, I can do that. I'll do that.
And if I can just add, I think if we did get a meeting or a couple of meetings with these entities on the books, this would be a perfect opportunity for us to invite the mayor and some other council folks who I believe have some interest in this discussion. And, you know, it'd be good to get their perspective and, you know, if nothing else, have some sort of brainstorm about what the future of this commission looks like.
That is very astute. We could have some educational things. Actually, long ago, we used to do that. About once a year, we would do something educational for our meeting. So that sounds like we could do that. Okay, so
I'm
Mark, oh, yes.
sorry. I'm excited if we get more groups, state or federal, to work with us, advise us. Going back to your comment, Chris, about the Washington Road house or property. What I was think when you said that, could we annex that into our historic district, being since it was owned by a minority? That to me is historic property, and we should try to maintain it.
So Kevin, let me explain to you some minutia you don't want to know, but I can explain it to you.
Good.
So our historic district was set up for the bicentennial. And it was set up at a time where like everybody wanted to be in, and it was almost expected. Postcards were probably sent to all addresses. And if you didn't send a postcard back saying that you didn't want to be in, you were just in, you were swept right in. Nowadays, historic districts are a little more contentious. There are people who don't want to be part of any kind of regulation. And newer historic districts really almost have to have like a 99% buy-in. And if anybody on the edge doesn't want to be in, they get scripted out very carefully. If we were to update or repropose our National Register district, we basically have to start all over again with the permissions with the public. So annexing it onto our existing district is probably one of the hardest ways to protect properties. A better way would be to propose a different historic district. I mean, after all, McDaniels is its own historic district. Roops Mill, for example, could be its own historic district. And then our ordinance could be that we would address other historic districts as well as the existing Westminster one. That way we don't have to upset any apple carts we already have protected, but we could annex. Webster Street's not in the historic district, and that's pretty historic at this point. You got to remember the bicentennial was 50 years ago. So properties that weren't really considered historic back then are probably historic now. So Webster Street, Kemper Street down on the other end of town, along the Pennsylvania corridor, some of those people have been very disappointed to find out they're not historic enough, but they could be if they were a small district of their own. That's a possibility we could talk over with our state representative about historic districts.
And Madam Chair, if I may, Roops Mill is a registered district.
It is, okay, so I knew it was state listed. I wasn't sure if it was a national register district, but we have no authority or no assistance there. It would have to change the ordinance to allow us to be of assistance. Or something. Mark would have to look into that.
I would assume Roops Mill would then fall under the County Historic Commission.
Very well, they could fall under both.
Because in the Carroll County one was more established for the Union Town area, but has the authority to do other state or federal mandated ones.
Madam Chair, if I may, just a point of clarification.
Yes,
Roops Mill is in the city.
it is.
Yes.
It's been annexed, but we could not give them tax credits because they're not within just our district.
And we would have to look into that. Right now, Roops Mill is mostly just farmland.
Exactly, but about 10 years ago, they did a ton of work on their Roops Mill in order to make it a spa and a church or something now and a private residence. We could have been really helpful then, but they were not eligible because they're not in our district. They're in the city, they're just not in our district. But if we had some ability to be helpful to other historic districts within the city, I think that would be something that would make us more helpful to historic preservation overall. Also, creating historic districts is no easy thing, you know. It's going to take a lot of research and a lot of neighborhoods being willing to be nominated. And so I say that kind of glibly because I know the alternative is even worse, to re-register the city, 1,400 houses, getting everybody to agree. Holy mackerel. That's all right. So if we're going to move ahead with this, is Mark still on the line?
Yes.
Mark, who do you want us to send stuff to if we're going to start data gathering?
To Andrew.
To Andrew. Poor Andrew. All right, Andrew, as we find stuff, we'll send stuff to you. And
Sounds good.
when we have another meeting, we will touch base and find out how far we've gotten and if we have a plethora of great ideas. And I think we should pursue getting a meeting with at least the state's historic district coordinator. I think that's a definite, we should try and get them to come visit us. They haven't been to us in a long time. All right, is there anything else in this topic we can cover this evening?
Is, Chair McMaster, is that so we need another letter then to the trust to ask them to come to speak, and then another letter to ask them to come to speak for a 288 East Main? Is that, am I understanding that correctly? Do we need two different requests?
Well, I'll do the request to the MHT for their advisory opinion on 288 East Main.
Okay.
Getting them to just come and address us, it probably should come off of letterhead, but it should be coordinated with city staff. And I'm pretty sure that Mark or Andrew could just rip off a letter like that once we find out who it is and when they could come. I think the official invite could be extended as long as the other commissioners think that's a good idea.
Right. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I understand all that correctly. Okay.
I don't recall us doing an official letter inviting the state in to come and talk to us because, to be honest, it's their job. But you do sometimes, right now with the state, you have to really press them. Just as an aside, at the Historical Society, we have an easement on all 3 of our buildings. We're supposed to be reviewed annually. We haven't seen a reviewer from the state since 2012, and I've been begging for them to come out and look at a problem I have with the brick to help advise us as to what to do. And I've been begging for a meeting since June. So this doesn't happen quickly. They're just overwhelmed. But you might as well get the ball rolling before the holidays. It only gets worse. All right, are we ready to go on to Historic District Commission and public comments?
Yes.
So with no objection, I'm moving on to number 5, Historic District Commission and public comments. Kevin, do you have anything to tell us this month?
No, but thank you.
All right. Josh, do you have anything to tell us this month?
Nothing further. Thank you.
Okay. Christine, have you got anything you'd like to share with us this month?
No, just that I'm excited to move forward with all of these opportunities to work with these agencies.
City staff, do you have anything to share with us this month?
Yeah, a couple things. We are starting up the Downtown Business Association again. We are having more of a meet and greet next week with downtown businesses to get more involvement, and because we haven't met in quite some time due to COVID, as you can imagine. So this is a first step back into trying to have this coordinated effort and better communication with the downtown businesses. Also, the passport program for Small Business Saturday is coming up on November 27th to November 27th to December 5th. You get a passport. If you visit 8 locations, you get their signatures, you return those to a library or to a town hall in any one of the downtowns in Carroll County. And you could be eligible to win a $50 gift certificate to use at any one of those businesses on the passport. Again, it's just not Westminster, it's also the other municipalities in the county. And
Mark, can I ask you, do you know that program intimately?
no, it was last minute discussion and we got together with the Main Street managers. So we are learning on the fly, basically.
The reason why I ask, and it's probably not germane to this meeting, but I understood it was championed by the Democrats Club, and I had to turn it down for the Historical Society because we are specifically non-political. So I was just wondering if you knew of another way we could participate without doing that.
I'll give it some thought. It's a shame that you couldn't be part of that.
Well, it's my call.
Yeah.
And I had to tell, we had to tell Corinne that we couldn't be involved because it looks like in her invite, it says the Democrats are supporting this.
Okay. But
And I have to be non-political, If it was the city inviting me, I would do it, or something else, Chamber of Commerce or something. If somebody else invited me, that would be great. But right at this minute, that's what came to us, so.
okay. We'll give some thought to that. The other thing you can do is the Mayor's Cup is also, we're going to start ramping up for the Mayor's Cup. That's where we ask downtown businesses to dress up their facades, their windows, and the mayor goes through the town, and we do have winners for certain categories and a final, the champion, I guess you want to call it. So that is coming up as well. So we do have a lot of things happening in the holidays. We're also, we're doing a winters and holiday farmers market over in downtown as well at the Stocksdale property. So there'll be some indoor space for this farmers market. And once that gets better finalized and more finalized, we'll provide information for you as well. So a lot of fun things happening this winter.
I have a question. Would it be possible for the Historic District Commission to have a table at something like that? Just an informational table if people had a question, because most people aren't going to log on to this meeting and listen. And most people aren't going to come to a meeting in person, a physical meeting. So, but if people are out shopping and whatever they're doing and we're at some location like the farmer's market or something, is that a possibility to do something like that, just to make people aware of what it is that this commission does?
We actually traditionally have a table at the Jazz and Flower Market.
Okay.
And we usually have one at Fall Fest? Do we usually have one at Fall Fest, Mark?
Chair McMasters, I believe it's only Flower and Jazz Festival. You're usually next to the city booth.
Right.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that. Okay.
Well, the good thing is we run those strolls and we run the farmers market. So I think if we want to find space, we could find space and at least have some information there available for people to come. If you want to sit and have time, we can also work that out as well. So that's a good thing. We do have control over those things.
Okay.
Yeah, we like Flower and Jazz because the city sets our tables and chairs up for us. We don't even have to drag our own tables. That's nice. It's nice.
But Christine, I like your idea. I would sit there at a table and talk to people. I think we need people to put a face to us. So I agree with you.
I think that would be great. I do have one thing to bring up for the commission, which is kind of fun and exciting. So Mark and Andrew know this already, but in front of the Mary Shellman House or the Shellman House at 206 East Main Street, you might notice there's a marker that's gone up that looks like a bat because it's got a big black plastic bag over it. So that marker is actually a historic marker, and we have not yet exactly landed on a time when we want to do a ribbon cutting. We're moving more and more to doing it in conjunction with one of our holiday activities because we're getting too smushed up to Thanksgiving right now. And this marker is because of women's suffrage. Mary Shellman was one of the earliest people to train people to vote in her own home. And we're one of 2 markers in the state. We're on a national women's suffrage trail. And when we get this unveiled, it's going to be a big deal. Some people are even saying we should try and get the governor to come out and say a few words. So you all will be on the invitee list. And I have to say, pencil in December 4th because I'm kind of slowly getting to that date because it's just too close to Thanksgiving right now to pull something together. So pencil in December 4th. I'm hoping that all the moons and stars line up so I can have a big ribbon cutting and it'll be your Christmas gift to the city.
Nice.
Yes. Anything else for the good of the group?
None for me, Madam Chair.
All right, then I'll ask everybody to agree to an adjournment. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.